Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Shit Moms Won't Say. My guest tonight is very intimidating to me because of my own personal athletic ability. I actually am going to read right off of my notes because, as I said to her before, I do not want to get her credentials wrong because they're super, super impressive. So this chickie who you're looking at right here was the youngest person to compete in the 2000 Olympic trials and has gone on to be like a wild swim champion, like crazy stuff. She's a 3-time Olympian and a 7-time Olympic medalist. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, 5 of those medals are gold. And are they right behind your head?
They are right here.
They are. I love it. Mom of 2, Miss Dana Vollmer. Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much. I have been looking forward to this.
Thank you so much. I've never had a freaking Olympian on the show. I literally adjusted myself before I started filming. I was like, oh, Dana, everything hurts. Like, I don't know how you, good for you. And I'm drinking tea today, everybody. I'm feeling very calm.
It's better than my energizing coffee that I have. So I feel like I need to wake up.
This is my Zen green tea. Because I'm as everyone knows, a very Zen person. If you can't hear my 1-year-old crying in the background, I'm very Zen. Everything's very Zen.
You have to be, right, with a 1-year-old screaming in the background.
Zen. Like I said, my fan is on because I'm sweating in the snow in New York. I'm drinking my tea. I'm a very relaxed person, if you guys haven't figured that out yet. Very relaxed. So let's jump into Big Mom 3 because you have quite a career. So I think your answers are going to be pretty crazy. So first question, did you always know you wanted to be a mom?
It's kind of a yes and no. That I always wanted to be a mom, but then when I was growing up, literally anybody who would hand me their child, the child would start screaming. And so eventually I felt like, okay, how can I say, yes, I want to be a mom so badly, but yet I felt like anybody who saw me with a kid would be like, okay, you don't have like mother instincts. And so I started saying that, no, I don't want to be a mom.
Maybe they were just shitty kids.
To the point where my parents believed I didn't want to have kids. And it was like, no, I was just really kind of self-conscious that kids screamed when I got handed them.
What did you do to them?
I know, right? I think as I think about it, I was just like, hi, kid. Like,
you didn't know what to do with them?
I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to hurt their neck. I didn't, I just had never really held a lot of kids. And so they were just kind of like handed to me.
I feel like there's a lot of rules around holding kids too. Like I've said this a million times. I did not know I wanted to be a parent until I was in like much later in life. I'm 35, but like later on, like I wasn't around babies. And I feel like when people hand you babies, they're like, well, watch the neck. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't do and it's like hard. It's jarring. My phone is ringing. Look at this. Get out of here. It's very jarring. When people are like, don't do that to my kid. And you're like, okay, I won't. So
it's someone else's baby. Like I didn't want to hurt it. I didn't want to make it cry. I didn't want to, so much went into like
them cry.
And I was.
One.
Here you go. Have it back.
I love that. So, and you're also, and I know the age of your kids, but for everybody out there, give us the breakdown. You have 2 boys.
I have 2 boys. My oldest is Arlen and he's 5 years old.
Arlen, cute
the
name.
Youngest is Riker and he's 3.
Okay, like sub question, because I've never heard those names before. How did you come up with those names?
Yeah, so we kind of wanted really unique first names. And then we kind of said, okay, unique first name, powerful middle name. Mm-hmm. And then, our last name. And so Arlen is Arlen Jackson Grant. Oh. And then Riker Alexander Grant. And it's not really like this profound story. It was a novel that my husband was reading, and Arlen is one of the characters, and he's actually not a good character, like in the book.
Like a bad guy. Loved the name. Boring.
And we had thrown around a lot of names, and to have us both be like, we really like this name. We knew. And kind of the same thing with Riker, but it was so much more of just months and months of going through boys' names lists that are out there, because we wanted a little girl. So we had a little girl's name. And then when we found out it was a boy, we were like, oh, we need another name. And, it was one of those, obviously name? Now we love having two boys.
Yeah. I love that. What was the girl's name?
Caden.
Pretty.
Yeah, it was
I like the boys' names. They're very they're very presidential.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it was Caden Isabella Grant was the
Caden Isabella Grant. I like
girl.
it. Okay, very unique. I like it very much. I'd never heard the name Riker for a child. I've only heard it Rikers Island. So I like it.
There's Riker in oh my gosh, it's Star Trek.
Oh.
So that is not where it's from, but that was what everybody had asked us, like, oh, like Star Trek. And
I don't know that.
Never seen Star Trek. And so I was like, nope, that's not it.
Oh, all right. Well, very cool. Okay. Well, Big Mom 3 question number 2. What is the shittiest or most backhanded piece of advice you've ever gotten from another mother or parent? And growing up to become an Olympian, I'd imagine you've had a lot of opinions thrown your way about lots and lots of things.
Yes, right. Everybody wants, I like to put it in a positive of everybody wants to help or feel needed, feel important.
Women are bitches. Absolutely not. Women are bitches.
But there was one that it was just, this actually happened quite a bit, and I've gotten used to just letting it go. But people would tell us, oh, your son is the happiest baby we've ever seen. And I would bring him to swim meets. So he was on deck all the time. And then I got asked, oh, how is he sleeping? And so then I kind of went into okay, he still sleeps with me. We're trying to work on getting him in his own bed, but I also really like snuggling. And the whole demeanor just changed. And it was like, oh, no. You have to do this. And it was just like, you just told me it's the happiest baby you've ever seen.
But not happy enough and not up to their standards. Yes. You're not doing their sleep training. So it's not the right way.
Yeah. And I've really tried to take that to heart whenever I'm talking to another mom of hey, take this with a grain of salt. We all figure out solutions for ourselves. We all have to kind of figure out what works for us and what doesn't. My brother, he has a little 1-year-old now, Benjamin.
Oh,
and, so I love his wife and we talk a lot. And it is one of those where I'm like, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but yeah, it's that tricky area that I've definitely had so many comments that it's just like, did I ask you? No,
you didn't ask. And also it's if you want to cuddle with your kid, if you want, who cares? If they're not keeping them up night, then who cares?
Yeah.
Is my kid's sleep pattern affecting your sleep pattern? Then shut up. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I just found with us, it was we'd figure out something that worked and we would use it until it didn't work anymore. And then we'd figure out something else. And if something's working for you, then do it. Regardless of what I ended up doing or what we figured out, do what's working. If it's not, then try other things.
What an unbelievably profound and simple piece of advice. If it's working, do it. If it's not, don't do it.
Yeah.
I feel like you should name the show that. If it's working, do it. And if it's not, don't do it. It couldn't be broken down more simply than that. But people have a real problem with that. People hate that. They hate anybody that's comfortable enough to be then don't do it. Or I don't like that.
Yeah. And I mean, it's gotten to where it's hard to talk about sometimes what we do as moms, because there's people who hate what you just did. And there's people that really support what you just did.
Yeah.
And you can't win regardless of how you're choosing to raise your kids. And sleep training, I mean, that was a huge controversial one. And I mean, for me, so we were okay, we read all these books on sleep training. We're well, what are we comfortable with?
Mm-hmm.
And it started though, we weren't comfortable with sleep training. And then I'm holding my son. He was almost 10 pounds when he was born. very quickly, he was a very large baby. And so I'm home by myself and he's just screaming and I'm holding him, and you're having those moments of like, I don't know, like I have no clue what to do at this point. And then I had a back spasm.
Oh no.
So I laid him in his crib and I went out in the hallway and I had the monitor there in front of me and I am just bawling. I couldn't really move. My back was hurting so bad. There was no way I could pick him up. And so I was laying in the hall, just watching, and he cried, not hysterical. Like that was our cutoff of like, there was a difference like that we heard where it was
a sound. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like a panicked cry. And we're like, we're not comfortable with that. But he was just kind of fussing, crying. And 40 minutes later, he fell asleep and he slept the entire night. And it was just like, like, oh my gosh, this kind of worked. And then the next night, it only took like 15 minutes. The night after that, it was like 10. And, it was really something that we had just read all these judgments on how you're going to, basically ruin your child from that moment forward. And it came down to that's all that I could do. And it worked. Like, and so now my 3-year-old Riker still gets up probably almost every night at between 1 and 3 a.m. and comes into our room and into our bed. And, it was one of those where I actually love it. He is such a little snuggle ball and he curls up behind me and all he wants to do is have like a lock of hair and he just sits here going like this. And,
I love that.
It's like, I know that he's my last baby and I'm going to just love it.
Like I say to my wife every night, as soon as my daughter goes to bed, I'm like, I miss her. Like I want her to crawl in bed with us. So, and with like the whole sleep training thing, you're right. There's a difference in crying. Like we hear the like, and we're like, oh, she's dying. She's dying. We should go in. But like,
that's the hysterical scream.
That's the hysterical cry. But like you have a tolerance level. If your tolerance is 40 minutes, it's 40 minutes. If your tolerance is, I have a friend, it was 4 hours. Okay. 4 hours. And it sucks. Nobody's like, I love hearing my kids scream for 4 hours, but it's about what you can tolerate. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Look at that. We went on a whole tangent about sleep training. People are going to be so educated when they leave this episode. It's unbelievable. We're so smart. Good for us. Okay. Big Mom 3 question number 3. What is a skill or superpower you had before becoming a mom that you think has really helped you as a mom?
Yeah, I think, I think it helped me as an athlete, but just kind of knowing good pain versus bad pain and kind of, like there's a pain in working out and pushing your body and being,
I wouldn't know.
And, but then there's a bad pain of when you're grinding on a joint or something's not sitting right when you're moving, and to know the difference in those. And then kind of with my kids to kind of understand when, okay, this is more of an attention cry of I got hurt, or is this I got hurt? Like, and there's such a big difference. And it's one that I'm kind of sensitive to, though, that like, I remember that no injury was ever big enough is how it felt like to not get to go to practice. I didn't know what it was that would finally let me not have to go. That's a whole different story. But so with my kids, it's like, okay, I want them to be tough, but I want them to know that their feelings are validated and they're real, and it's okay to be scared, and it's okay to want attention, and it's okay to be sad. And so it's like, I go over and, they just tend to give me a hug and we sit. And a lot of times, eventually they just kind of calm down and they can talk about what hurt. And, even today we were walking to school and Arlen tripped and he falls down, and it's like this scream as he grabs his leg, and, to be able to calmly walk over and just be like, hey, like, are you okay? Like, here, try to stand up. And then we started talking about sticks. And the next thing I know, he's running. And kind of that difference, I guess, same thing with the sleep training, but like something else clicks in when they're hurt,
Yeah.
And yeah, so I felt like that was a power in my swimming that helped me be able to continue to train and know my body. And same thing with the kids, to kind of be able to have them assess their bodies and what do they need, and do they want ice? Do they want a Band-Aid? Do we need to go take a bath to help fix it?
Or do they just like need a
I've
hug?
enjoyed that.
Well, and it's interesting because I think it's like a generational thing, right? And you're obviously like, this is a whole other story, right? But it sounds like there were days where maybe you didn't want to swim, but this was something like you had committed to, so you were going to do it. And I'd imagine just generationally, your parents were like, well, Dana, you're doing this, right? Like you said, you're going to do it, so you're doing it. I think, and I know you and I are like roughly the same age.
Yeah.
People of our generation are much more mindful of like, sometimes you're crying about a hurt elbow, but it's really right here.
Yeah.
You know, it's like really right here. And it's okay to say like, I don't feel well overall. And I don't think that was something like I wasn't encouraged as a kid to say that. And it sounds like that's something you're very mindful of now, perhaps just from your own upbringing.
Yeah. Yep. I would say the exact same thing. And there were moments, during COVID right now that I could just see it, like in my 5-year-old, that he'd start talking about friends and he would get teary-eyed. And instead of trying to change the subject or make it some kind of positive, to just hug him and be like, sweetie, this is hard. I know. And he would just start bawling. And to know that it was like, okay, he needed that. Like you have to be able to get these emotions out and not just bottle it up, because I felt like I bottled things up for a long time, and then they escaped through injuries, things getting hurt, and it forced the break on me. And yeah, to just allow him to cry. And I've always hated the whole like, oh, boys don't cry, men don't cry. Like,
stupid.
Yeah. No, it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel all of these emotions. And I just want them to live it, like feel it, and know that we're going to come through this. And that's such a strength skill to me, is like, you have to be in it and really feel it to then learn from it and move past it. It's not just acting like it didn't bother you.
Yeah. I feel like our generation's going to raise a whole new type of person, like I hope like not good, like more in tune with their feelings. Cause like all of a sudden at like 34, I was like, fuck, like, oh no, like this is really, really bad. Like you're losing your mind, all of a sudden it just hits you and you're like, I've never talked about an emotion in my life, and it just wasn't how we were raised. So
yeah,
that's a good skill. I was like, what are you talking about? Good pain versus bad pain. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for clarifying. Because if I had just left it at that, my like imagination would have gone like really, really wild, and I wouldn't have any idea what you were talking about. So I'm sure other people would have, but I would have like left this conversation being like, I think she's weird. I think she's
she talks in gibberish.
God, she's nuts. So let's talk about swimming a little bit. So I'm sure you've never talked about swimming before. You married a swimmer. This has been your career. Was this like your life's passion? Like, were you at a young age like, I want to swim? Or was it just something you got into?
I mean, my mom was a swimmer before I was born. She held records in New England up until she was in 8th grade. And then they didn't offer sports for women at her high school.
Wow.
Okay. So she made a point that our kids would be in sports and that nothing would get in the way of her commitment to that, of driving us to practices, of providing good meals. Like that was so incredibly important to her. And so, I mean, I started off in swimming. I did soccer, gymnastics, volleyball, track. We did everything. Yeah. And it was one of those that they had a rule that if you committed to something, then you had to finish the season. You couldn't just quit mid-season.
Okay.
Yeah, which I think is fine. But swimming kind of always seemed like my mom's bread and butter. Like she just loved swimming. And so it was something that I excelled at quickly. But to be honest, I had always wanted to be in the WNBA. Like as a kid, that was my goal. And before I could drive, I was like, oh, my license plate's going to be WNBA number 22. And, we planned those things out. And But then in 8th grade, I tore my ACL. And so it was actually through that I trained differently in the pool, and my swimming just took off. Like I developed an upper body from dragging my legs behind me when I had torn my ACL. And it was kind of this aha moment of how much farther I could go in sports, in swimming. And I really, really appreciated that our high school basketball coach, her name's Lita Andrews. They've won like more high school basketball championships than any school in the country.
Oh, cool.
And I wanted to play for her. Like that was part of it. And so tearing my ACL in 8th grade, like I was supposed to make varsity my freshman year, was what we had kind of talked about. And she was the one that sat me down and was like, Dana, look at your swimming career. Like, look how far you can go with this. You've torn one ACL. It's very highly likely that you will tear the other ACL. And that was so powerful to me to come from the basketball coach, to be telling me to pursue swimming. And one thing led to another, and I was swimming all the time. And I tried to always keep in tune with, I call her the little 8-year-old girl that just loved to race and loved to be a mermaid underneath the water. Like, that is how I picture being able to swim butterfly, is I get to be a mermaid and I get to fly.
That's so cool. Oh my God. And listen, like, so my wife and I laugh all the time. My wife, and she's going to be so mad at me for saying it, she is the worst swimmer. The worst, like a really bad swimmer. And I'm like pretty good. I'm not like, I don't have gold medals, as I said, my Hofstra degree is somewhere around here. But like that to me is just amazing. Like that's your like mentality about it. And what I want to understand more is, how does that translate to parenting? Because obviously there's tremendous discipline that had to go into becoming a 7-time Olympian, right? That doesn't just happen to somebody. And also, like, what do you see your kids doing? Are you it sounds like you listen to their feelings, so maybe you're not like, your athletes go, but is that something you're pushing them towards because you've had such a positive experience with it, or are you just like, do whatever the hell you want?
Yeah, so it's a very complicated question for me. Okay. And especially
I got all day, go to town.
When I became a mom, I had this huge fear that my kids wouldn't think that I saw them as successful unless they reached the level that I did.
Oh.
And how afraid of that I am. And so how supportive I want to be of whatever level they reach, of whatever makes them happy. And, my swimming career wasn't all positives. And I basically felt like there was a person that I was supposed to be, and I call it my superwoman suit, that I was supposed to love competitions. I'm supposed to be competitive. I'm supposed to love the pain of working out. And none of those things are actually true. And like I described, I like thinking about my butterfly as a mermaid, and it's so much more like relaxing and meditative about being in the water for me. And but for the longest time, I felt like I had to be a swimmer, and that's how people saw me. And so to want my kids, people ask me like, oh, do you want your kids to follow in your footsteps? And honestly, I have mixed feelings. Yeah. It's one of those like, yeah, I'm proud of the medals, but there's a lot of mental chaos that unfolds when you're competing at that kind of level. And I mean, for all of us really. And so basically, okay, so how that gets into my parenting is really trying to see what they enjoy doing.
Yeah.
No matter what that is. And my 5-year-old right now, that's breakdancing. I don't know why, but he loves it. He like spins around on the floor and pops all these poses, and it's amazing. And my 3-year-old is actually really into basketball right now and is just super coordinated. And but he's also my singer.
Oh, cool.
And I sing to them at night all the time. And my 3-year-old is the one that's like matching pitch. He knows all the lyrics. If I'm singing some song from their cartoon shows that I don't really know, he'll stop me and be like, that wasn't the right song. Like, you're not singing it right.
And nothing makes you feel like a bigger asshole than being corrected by a child, because they just look right through you. My daughter's only one. And if I mess something up, she's like, You gonna fix it? Like it really, all of a sudden you go from like adult to like, oh, I feel real small right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so it's really just like, I want them to be happy. And I know maybe that seems so like, okay, but it's like, I don't care if they're an Olympic gold medalist. I don't care if they're the best athlete on their school. I don't care. I want them to enjoy learning. I want them to enjoy movement. And I feel like so many people are looking at the end goal and they miss kind of what we're actually trying to develop in childhood. And that's that love of movement, of being a part of a team, of, learning that you can fall and you can stand back up, and that we miss out on that. And so it's, I'm constantly showing them too that like, okay, you love this, like, let's learn more. Like, how do we learn more about that? Mm-hmm. And for a little bit, my 5-year-old was into fencing. I know nothing about fencing, but it got us watching fencing videos. And so we would go on the sidewalk and we'd like have sticks and we were pretending to fence. And breakdancing, we were pulling up videos of breakdancing and trying to always tell them that like, that's the fun, is learning new things, and that there's no reason why you can't be that person one day if you want to be.
Cool.
So yeah.
No, I think I see you like questioning. You're like, I just want them to be happy answer. I think that's a great answer. I do, because again, I think it's a generational thing. We were trained like me. What was I trained for? You know what I mean? We're in a generation where we were taught like, well, you do this, this, and this, and that's what success looks like. And I think that we have an opportunity as parents of younger kids right now to show them success comes in many, many different forms. Yes. Success comes in happiness. Success comes in confidence. There's so many different ways that success can and should manifest that we maybe weren't taught, so I think that's a great answer.
Yeah.
Don't second guess your answer.
I've just seen so many people that it's like, okay, I'll be happy if, whatever that if is. And then, if you sacrifice everything that means that's important to you to get there, that's not the end all answer of being happy and fulfilled in your life.
No, it's not. And so I think this is a sports term. I think you just did like a layup for me. Is that a sports term? Okay, perfect. So there's obviously a change of what's important to you now, right? You're a mom of 2, you're a wife. You've used your platform to, you're a speaker, your, wellness and fitness. I mean, what is important to you now? What are you driving towards now? What is your like, I'm happy if now?
Yeah, it's all about experiences to me, to have multiple different experiences for them, for me, for the boys. Like, it's just, different ways of taking walks and riding scooters and doing picnics and walking along a creek. And, it's just trying to fill their lives with variety of, just so many different things. And, I felt like growing up, it was kind of that feeling of, oh, you're successful if, you graduate from college, if you have this kind of salary, if you're a family and you have kids, if you own your own home, like there are all these set things that were like, that means you've made it. And
these checked boxes,
Yeah. And that's really missing the heart of what actually makes you feel happy.
Damn straight. I have a total random question that just popped into my head because now I'm curious about it. So I'm sorry if I'm throwing you off here and it wasn't sort of where I was going, but now I'm thinking about it. So your 2 pregnancies, you were still swimming professionally.
Mm-hmm.
So my very general question is like, what the hell did that look like? Because I'm sitting here thinking, I was like, she's an athlete. She's in incredible shape, the training, this, that, and the other thing. Your whole body obviously changes when you're pregnant. How was it? Was it supported? Was it something you felt great about? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah. So with my first son, I had actually, so after the 2012 Olympics, I won 3 gold medals and broke 2 world records. And
is that all?
That's it. Then I kind of felt like, okay, how do you retire after that? Like I felt like I was actually ready to be done, but you're at the pinnacle of your career. Like,
go to bed. You're like, I'm done. I'm tired. I won these medals. Go to sleep. Watch a TV show. Watch the calendars, for Christ's sake. Good for you.
So I swam for another year.
Okay.
Then I felt like in that year, it was like, okay, I really think that I am ready to be done. And so I took a year off. And then that was when my husband and I were like, we really want to have a family. And so then pregnant with him and feeling like I had lost all control of my body. I had put on 50 pounds, and it was kind of one of those, like, to take it back a little bit, that I felt like as an athlete, my body was so judged all the time. Yeah. Are you lean enough? Do you have enough muscle mass? And I'm in basically half naked in a swimsuit all the time. And then to be pregnant and have getting bigger and gaining weight be beautiful. It was completely changing. And it was still interesting. Like, I didn't like people looking at me, and people come up and rub your belly, and it's personal space. But it was such a neat thing for me that changed the way I viewed my body and what my body was capable of doing. And, but then I was on bed rest for 8 weeks, and I decided that, okay, I want to move again. And so it was on bed rest that I decided that I would try to make the next Olympic team.
Oh my God.
And so I called my coaches from bed rest, and I was like, I don't know how this is going to look, but what do you think about this? Can we do this? And I think that to really let people inside my head that, like, people want Olympians to say that I'm going for the next Olympics. Like, that's the next big goal. And so it was easy to say that, but it was like, really for me, it was wanting to get strong again, wanting to feel in control of my body and the way that I moved. That's the only way I knew how to get in shape, because I had been swimming for so long.
Yeah.
And, but I was also, it was really important to me to try to breastfeed. And so I brought my son to the pool with me. I had a friend who would hold him, and then I'd swim, and then I'd get out and I'd feed him, and I'd get back in the pool, and she'd travel to competitions with me. And it was more about those experiences. Like, I didn't go into practices being like, I have to have the best workout because I need to do this, this, and this to reach my goal of the Olympic team. It was just like, I'm going to try to move. I'm going to try to work out. I'm going to have some me time where I'm not holding on to him. And it just was the healthiest approach I'd felt like I had ever had to the sport, because it was, I saw my life post the Olympics. Like, my son didn't care if I won a gold medal at the next Olympics. Like, he wanted his mom. And so it was very empowering to me in just being able to kind of take the sport of swimming for what it is, as a sport that I'm supposed to enjoy.
That's awesome. I'm really happy I asked that question. That's a great answer. Good for you, Jess. Okay. So now I want to know what's next. So now how are you using your powers for good? What are you doing now? And what does that look like for you? So you retired in 2019. Obviously 2020 is a wash of a year, so we're going to just not count it. I don't know if everyone's aware of that. 2020 sucks. But what's next? How do you go from 7-time medalist and 3-time Olympian, setting all these records? What's driving you now?
Yeah. It's one of those too, to go from being the best in the world to feeling like, okay, what am I going to do now? And am I supposed to just instantly be the best at that too? Is that what people are expecting? And I had been public speaking for a while, and, but it was, excuse me, it was kind of tied into feeling like I'm being hired as an Olympian. And so I'm supposed to go and tell them they're expecting a certain story. And to step back from my career, and it's actually taken me a year to really figure out what I want to teach, what I want to say, and what I valued most from my career, and to kind of let go of the script of I'm an Olympian here to motivate you, and to just get in tune with what message I want. And it's so much more with how we can set up our path to reaching goals from within us and understanding us and breaking down the definitions of hard work and commitment and these perfect images of the perfect mom and, the perfect spouse, the perfect employee, and basically that we compare ourselves to those images all the time. And if you're not aware or conscious of it, like subconsciously, you're still doing that. And to start to bring awareness to that and break that down and be more honest and realistic with who we are and what we want. And it took me a long time in my swimming career to not be looking outside of myself and feeling like, okay, how should I be training? How many yards should I be doing? What time should I be at? And to really decide like, okay, I love the water. Something about me is what drives me to be as fast as I am. Like I got to stop doing it how everybody else says that I should do it and try to figure out my way.
Yeah.
And how scary that is. That's terrifying sometimes. But once I dove into that, like that's what led me to 3 golds in London. That's what led me to have the mentality of, yeah, I can go to the Olympics and be a mom.
Amazing. It's so cool. That's great. And good for you. And congratulations on taking the time to really tap into that. Cause I think, like I love this like saying, right? Like you should all over yourself. And people do, you should do this. Your life should look this way. And like that you took the time to say like, let me stop comparing like what I should be doing. And like, how do I inspire people to do what makes them happy? It's so cool. And I'd imagine like, again, as an Olympian myself, I'd imagine it's not easy, to be the best in the world, right? Which is what you are in this category, like to be the best in the world. And then to say, well, what do I do now? What do I do now? And how do I not compare myself to myself?
Yeah.
So that's really cool. So I hope everybody hire Dana to speak. Please, everybody hire her. Okay. If you do nothing,
I would love it.
Hire her for your speaking engagement. She's a great, there you go. There's your plug. There you go. Well, it's okay. So I have one more question, then I want to start to wrap it up. Do your kids think it's pretty cool that you're who you are, or do they not really care? Like you said, they're like, she's my mom.
Yeah, I've seen both. Like for the longest time, I felt like, well, they don't really know. And I say for the longest time, my oldest is 5, so it hasn't been that long. But I took my medals to his preschool class, and because that's what he wanted. He was like, Mommy, I want you to come and show your swimming to my class. And it was bring your parent, like your parents get to talk about what they do for work. Yeah. And so I brought like one of my crazy swimsuits, and I brought my medals, and we actually got, when I was in Rio, there's a plastic replica of the medal. And I'd never seen that at any other Olympics. And so he was wearing it, and he calls it Mommy's big necklaces.
That's so cute.
And like, they just, they like the medal. I don't know if they, understand really what was in it, but it's one of those that anytime they see someone in a swim cap and goggles, that's Mommy.
That's so cute. Oh my God, that's very painful and very cute. Oh my goodness. Well, okay, let's start to wrap it up. So 2 final questions for you. What is one thing you can't live without as a mom?
So I thought about this one a lot, and what came up for me was my Apple Watch. And mainly because, one, I always forget my phone. Like I am all over the place with my 2 kids and preschool and getting people dressed and meals and trying to speak. And, it's just everywhere. And so I kept leaving my phone. And to be completely honest, that was a trend before I was a mom as well. Like I just seemed to leave that thing. But after my second son was born, I actually had postpartum depression. And then once I got on medication, and like a month later, I was like, oh, like, okay, I can do this now. Like before that, it was like, why? And what did I get into? And I didn't dare leave the house. But so what do? I take my little infant in my carrier, and then my 2.5-year-old and my bulldog, and I decide to go on a hike.
Oh no.
So I had looked up like easy hikes. And so I drove and we get out and we're doing this hike. And as I'm going along, it's like this hike that's supposed to be around a lake. And we're climbing over boulders and like there's, all this rough terrain. And we basically get 3/4 of the way around. And it was one of those, like every step of the way, I was like, this isn't like this probably isn't good. Like, but we kept being further. And so it was like, it didn't make sense to turn around. So I just figured we'd just keep going. And we get 3/4 of the way around and the trail goes into the lake. And then you can see it on the other side where it comes out of the lake.
Oh no.
And there's this giant rock with this ledge about this wide that connects the two. And I was, I was like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? And so I was like, okay, we're going to try. And so again, he's in his carrier. I have a death grip on Arlen's hand and I'm like, okay, sweetie, like we're going to hold this rock and we're going to shimmy along and we're going to get to the other side. And so we're going and we're in the middle and there's just this tug from my other hand as my bulldog looks at me and goes, oh, hell no. Like there's no way I'm not going across that ledge, And so we're like, okay, so we backtrack and we get off this rock and then my Arlen at 2.5 says, I want to touch the water. And so he goes over and he feels the water and slips and falls in the lake. Oh. And it was shallow, but this lake was really cold. And so he gets out, he's bawling that he's soaking wet. I don't know how to get around this rock. I know that I was already 3/4 of the way around this lake. Like I could see the parking lot past this rock. Oh, no. And, we strip him down basically to his undies because his clothes were freezing. And I take my bulldog off of the leash and I was like, you got to figure it out. Like, I'm going to go with you, but you got to figure this out. Like, I can't pull you along. And then my 2.5-year-old gets on my back. So infant on the front, toddler on the back. Bulldog needed to fend for herself. And it was then that I realized that I had forgotten my phone.
Oh no.
I couldn't get help if I wanted to. And it was
awful.
A really scary moment, but it was also like the way that everybody kind of understood, like there's nothing we can do. Like we have to get back. Like we have to. And to have had that conversation with a 2-year-old, be like, okay, like I know that you're cold. I know that we've already been hiking for like an hour, like, but can you help mommy? Can we get back? And his little body just being like, yes, mom, and so we made it all the way back around. My bulldog's laying here next to me. She figured a way to stay with us. And I had him on my back and the little one on the front. And then I was able to get her back on our leash and we got in the car and there was my phone sitting in my car. And I had nightmares after that. Like
I'm going to have nightmares from that story.
Nobody got hurt. Nobody had a scratch on them. Like that night we were all in bed, like everyone was fine. Arlen raves about this story, like for a while, like he loved our hike. He didn't see the fear. And I just kept thinking about what could have happened when we were out there. And so that's when we decided to get an Apple Watch. And now we got the one with cellular. So it is on my wrist and I can contact people if I need to. And I had actually used it. I went jet skiing with my brother out in Lake Tahoe and our jet ski died in the middle of the lake. And somehow my watch still worked and I was able to call my mom and they went to the rental place and someone came out and got us. And so now it's just one of those, like, it is something that I will always have for that, just in case I want to be able to contact somebody.
That's nuts.
That's a story I've never told anyone because, I would beat myself up. I was like, I was a bad mom. Like I put my children at risk.
No, that's not bad mom. That's just being a person. You left your phone in the car. Big deal. Do you know how many times a day I'm like, where the hell are my glasses? Where's my wallet? Like, who knows? You lose everything. Being a mom's hard. But that is a crazy story. And if Apple doesn't give us both a sponsorship after that, I don't know what else to do, because that is the only reason to have an Apple Watch. That is insane. Or I should say the number one, like, best reason I've ever heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Final question. What is something you know now that you wish you knew before becoming a mom?
However you decide to parent is the best way for you to parent.
A big round of applause on that one. Yeah, absolutely.
You can read millions of books and get tons of advice. And, while I think it's important to learn from people, to kind of take everything as options, that you get to see what works for you, and that what works for you is supposed to be what works for you. Like,
I love it. Wow, that's a great answer. And thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it. Where can people follow you? What's the best? I know you're on Instagram. Is there a website? Where can people find you?
Yeah, the best is Instagram. So it's just at dana.vollmer. And then we've spent the past 6 months crafting a new website. So that's supposed to launch in January, probably the end of January. So that's danavollmer.com. And it'll be about my speaking and all the different things that I offer, and pictures of me and my kids. And I tried to make it so much more me, instead of just this superwoman that people want to see as an athlete. It's like, screw all that. Like, I want it to be what feels right for me. And so I'm really excited about that. So Instagram and the website.
I love it. That's awesome. And I love that you're just embracing being a person outside of the Olympian, outside of the superwoman. It's so cool. And thank you again for being here. And thank you for tuning in to Shit Moms Won't Say. We'll see you next week.